High above the tallest mountains, where clouds kissed ancient peaks and whispers of old magic danced on the wind, lived a kingdom of magnificent dragons. These were not just any dragons. They were grand, mighty creatures with scales that shimmered like jewels and voices that rumbled like distant thunder. They loved their gold, their gems, and their cozy, treasure-filled caves, often dreaming of epic adventures and brave knightly encounters. But among these proud, fiery beings lived a dragon quite unlike the rest. His name was Sparky. Sparky had scales of a warm cinnamon brown, and his eyes, usually blazing with a dragon's fire, held a softer, gentler glow. While other dragons practiced their fiercest roars or polished their hoards, Sparky dreamed of something else entirely. Sparky loved to bake. Yes, a dragon who loved the delicate art of whisking, kneading, and rising. His cave wasn't filled with shimmering gold, but with giant mixing bowls, sturdy wooden spoons, and shelves stacked with bags of flour, sweet sugar, and jars of wild mountain honey. He found more joy in a perfect crust than in a pile of gleaming diamonds. Deep inside his cozy cavern, far from the watchful eyes of his more traditional kin, Sparky would spend his days. He'd gather plump berries from sun-drenched clearings, carefully pluck ripe apples from ancient trees, and collect tiny, fragrant blossoms, all to add a special touch to his delicious creations. His dragonfire, usually powerful enough to melt stone, transformed into the gentlest of flames for his oven, just a whisper of warmth, perfectly calibrated to bake his sourdough loaves to a golden crisp, or to coax his blueberry muffins to fluffy perfection, without ever scorching them. It was a skill he had perfected over many peaceful years. Oh, the smells that drifted from Sparky's cave. Not the sulfurous scent of dragon breath, but the sweet perfume of vanilla, the comforting aroma of warm bread, and the spicy hint of ginger. These wonderful scents would sometimes waft out, puzzling the other dragons, who merely sniffed the air and blamed it on a curious forest breeze. Occasionally, a curious young dragon might peek into Sparky's cave, only to recoil in confusion. "Why are you playing with flowers, Sparky?" they'd snort, flicking their tails. "Dragons are meant for grander things, like guarding treasure or napping." Sparky would simply smile, a little sadly, and return to his dough, knowing his joy was often misunderstood. Sparky loved his baking, but a tiny part of him yearned to share his delicious creations. He imagined the happy smiles, the gasps of delight, but who would ever trust a giant fire-breathing dragon with a cake? Humans, he knew, were terribly afraid of dragons, and for good reason, or so he had been told by all the older, fiercer dragons. One brisk autumn, a harsh chill settled over the valley below. The small village of Oakhaven, nestled by a winding river, shivered. Their village ovens had mysteriously broken, and the children were growing cold and hungry, longing for the warmth of freshly baked bread. Their usual cheer had faded to quiet worry. From his mountain perch, Sparky watched the villagers. He saw their huddled shoulders, their worried faces, and felt a pang in his gentle heart. He knew he could help, if only they weren't so terribly frightened of him. He was a dragon, after all, and dragons were supposed to be scary, not helpful.
After much thought, Sparky hatched a plan, a wonderfully brave and slightly nervous plan. That night, under the cloak of a moonless sky, he baked and baked. Loaf after loaf of warm, honey-crusted bread, fluffy fruit scones, and plump, spiced buns, all carefully packed into a massive, hand-woven basket. With the lightest touch, he gathered the warm basket and flew silently down to Oakhaven. He gently placed it by the village well, a place where everyone would see it come morning. Then, with a hopeful heart, he flew back to his cave, hoping for the best and wondering what the morning would bring. The next morning, a small child, curious and a little brave, was the first to find the basket. At first, she was scared, seeing the unusually large basket, but then a most delicious, warm aroma wafted from within. Her fear was quickly replaced by curiosity, and then a rumbling in her tummy. Soon the whole village gathered, cautiously approaching the mysterious basket. The irresistible scent of fresh bread filled the crisp morning air, a scent they hadn't known for weeks. When they saw the perfectly baked loaves, still warm to the touch, they gasped in wonder. Who could have left such a miraculous gift? A wise elder, seeing the children's hungry eyes, carefully took a piece. It was soft, sweet, and wonderfully warm. Soon, all the children were delightedly munching on the mysterious bread, their faces beaming with joy. Laughter, long absent from Oak Haven, began to bubble up, spreading warmth through the chilly village. From that day on, every few mornings, a new basket of freshly baked goods would appear by the well: fluffy apple tarts, spiced ginger cookies, and loaves studded with sun-dried fruits. The villagers never saw their mysterious baker, but they knew deep in their hearts that someone kind was watching over them. Whispers began to spread. Could it be a forest spirit? A kind fairy? Then one chilly dawn, a little boy, unable to sleep, peeked out his window just as a great warm brown dragon gently placed a basket down. He saw Sparky, not a fierce monster, but a gentle giant, whose eyes held a sparkle of kindness. The boy told his tale, and though some were scared, the memory of the delicious bread and the unwavering kindness it represented warmed their hearts. They realized that not all dragons were alike, and perhaps not all fears were true. They started to wave small, cautious greetings towards the mountain peaks. Sparky continued his baking, his heart full of quiet joy. He didn't need thanks or praise. The knowledge that his efforts brought smiles was enough. Sometimes he would even hear the happy laughter of the children wafting up the mountain, and it was the sweetest sound of all, better than any song. And so the story of Sparky, the dragon who loved to bake, taught everyone a wonderful lesson: that true strength isn't always in fire and might, but often in kindness, in sharing your unique gifts, and in daring to be different. For a warm loaf of bread, baked with love, can be more powerful than any roar, building bridges between hearts where only walls once stood.